Test. Test. 1 2 7 7. Oh, it works. So hot, chat. So hot. It's hot as a motherfucker up in here. That's right. Oh, scheiße. Das ist sehr gut, ja. Oh, we like this, ja. Das ist sehr gut. Fucking A, dude. Oh. Okay. It's Hot Wednesday. Smoking Hot Wednesday. That's right, folks. Welcome to the channel. We got a Smoking Hot Wednesday coming in hot. You never know. 1 week, the weather's 65 degrees and clear. And then the next week, it's over. It's 95. Just like that. What are you going to do? Live Game 4. What's up? Might have a special guest today. We'll see. The usual. Oh yeah, because I have hair now. That's right. Oh, that's too smooth. Damn. All right. All right, folks. I'm sorry about the sniffling, but I have horrible allergies today, as you can probably hear them. But whatever. What am I going to do about it?
Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report.
That's right. What am I going to do about it? I'm sorry. Could see if it could remove the sniveling, but you wouldn't hear my S's.
I'm Amy Goodman. This morning, President Trump posted on Truth Social, Iran's taken too long to negotiate a ceasefire deal and will now have to, quote-unquote, pay the price.
Yeah, they're sending in
this comes as the U.S. military says it completed strikes against Iran that were reportedly in response to the downing of a U.S. Apache helicopter near the Strait of Hormuz. Iranian state media is reporting around 20,000 Iranians have lost access to drinking water after 2 reservoirs were reportedly hit by U.S. strikes. 2 U.S. officials told CNN the Apache helicopter was brought down by an Iranian drone and said it was unclear whether the helicopter was intentionally targeted. An Apache helicopter cost between $52 million to over $100 million, while an Iranian Shahed drone cost roughly $35,000 to make. Iran said it launched retaliatory strikes on U.S. targets in the region. This morning, Iran's Revolutionary Guard said they had carried out missile and drone attacks on U.S. military bases in Jordan, Kuwait, and Bahrain. in Lebanon. Israeli strikes killed at least 8 people in the city of Tyre, despite Iran warning it would resume attacks against Israel if the strikes continued. The Israeli military issued new evacuation orders for Tyre, including its Christian quarter, for the first time. Across southern Lebanon, Israeli air and artillery strikes killed at least 13 people Tuesday. Since March, Israel's killed at least 3,600 people, according to the Lebanese Health Ministry. A fifth of the population has been displaced, over 1 million people. A new report by the United Nations says armed groups and police units in Gaza have beaten, maimed, and publicly executed dozens of Palestinians. The UN documented hundreds of cases of extrajudicial punishment, including, quote, kneecapping, bone breaking with metal pipes or cement bricks, and beatings, unquote. What? Al Jazeera's reported certain armed groups in Gaza have been known to serve as Israeli agents, and that Israel's provided weapons and other assistance for these groups to oppose Hamas.
Of course.
In related news, Dr. HasanAbi Safia, the director of Kamel Adwan Hospital in northern Gaza, who was detained by Israeli forces in December 2024, has been reportedly transferred to another prison and placed in solitary confinement, according to the Israeli group Physicians for Human Rights. Dr. Abu Safia has reportedly faced torture, starvation, and denial of medical care as his health worsens after over 500 days of Israeli imprisonment without charge. Meanwhile, a separate UN report has found Israeli forces are directly involved in settler attacks that have killed, wounded, and displaced Palestinians in the occupied West Bank, while Israeli soldiers protect settlers. This comes as France has banned Israeli Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich from entering France for promoting the annexation of the occupied West Bank and Gaza. In related news, Italian prosecutors have launched a probe against far-right Israeli National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir over reports of torture by members of the Gaza humanitarian aid flotilla who were abducted by Israeli forces last month. In Kenya, police forces fatally shot a man as hundreds of people gathered to protest an Ebola quarantine facility for U.S. citizens in the town of Nanyuki. Witnesses told Reuters the man was seen with a bullet wound to the head as his body laid motionless in the back of a police vehicle. Damn. This came after Kenyan police on Tuesday fired tear gas and detained several residents who are protesting the U.S.-backed facility.
How dare they?
As a resident, I can say that we don't have the capability of dealing with this disease. So what we want is to be heard as the residents of Laikipia, constituency, or Laikipia at large, and the whole country, because if it starts here, we believe that the whole country will get the disease, and we won't have a way to deal with it. We don't have civic education on safety measures.
U.S. plans to open the facility are reportedly moving forward despite a Kenyan court order from May that had suspended further construction. A World Cup referee from Somalia returned home Wednesday after being denied entry into the United States just days before the start of the World Cup. Omar Artan was due to be the first referee from Somalia to officiate at a World Cup and has been named one of Africa's top referees. Artan had flown into Miami International Airport from Turkey, was reportedly told by U.S. Customs and Border Protection agents that he was inadmissible to the U.S. Artan arrived in the Somali capital of Mogadishu earlier today, where he was welcomed by soccer fans.
Our referee is an international standard. He has officiated international matches in Africa and Asia, and he was on his way to officiate global football matches. It would have been his first time participating in the world football stage. We are saddened by the way he was discriminated against, and we strongly condemn this act.
Trump's immigration crackdown and visa restrictions have disrupted travel into the U.S. for scores of World Cup fans and players from qualifying nations, with advocates around the world condemning Trump's policies. In Northern Ireland, anti-immigration riots are roiling Belfast after an asylum seeker from Sudan was charged with attempted murder and the stabbing attack of a man. Firefighters and emergency responders escorted immigrant families from their homes after cars and garbage cans were set on fire and used to create roadblocks around Belfast.
Shit.
Michelle O'Neill, the First Minister of Northern Ireland, said in a statement, quote, "Groups of masked men burning families out of their homes is nothing less than disgusting cowardice. This has nothing to do with community. This is outright thuggery," unquote. A federal judge permanently blocked Alabama from executing 49-year-old prisoner Jeffrey Lee by nitrogen gas, ruling the method violates the U.S. Constitution's ban on cruel and unusual punishment. Lee was scheduled to be executed Thursday at an Alabama prison. Alabama's Attorney General said the state is appealing the decision, which means the case could end up before the U.S. Supreme Court.
Let it go. Fuck.
House Republicans have approved a $70 billion budget reconciliation package to fund President Trump's immigration crackdown through the end of his term, again bypassing Congress's annual appropriations process. The measure now heads to Trump's desk to be signed into law, ending a months-long funding standoff.
Why do we elect those kinds of prosecutors that want to, like, put people to death and don't understand that's not okay anymore? Or why do they have laws? This is so stupid.
Between Republicans and Democrats following the fatal shootings of Alex Preti and Renee Good in Minneapolis. This funding package comes in addition.
Yeah, but he doesn't deserve to be put to death for that because he killed people. I don't agree.
To the $170 billion already approved for ICE and Border Patrol last year as part of Trump's so-called One Big Beautiful Bill. Democratic Congressmember Maxwell Frost said on social media, quote, "Instead of investing in you and ensuring you can afford your health care, groceries, or rent, they chose to hand $70 billion to agencies operating without any guardrails while terrorizing and brutalizing our communities," Congressman Frost wrote. In more immigration news, an investigation by the Associated Press has found the Trump administration separated dozens of immigrant children from their parents for a second time. These families had been previously separated during Trump's first term as he enforced his so-called zero-tolerance policy, leading to hundreds of children being ripped from their parents at the U.S.-Mexico border.
That's terrible, dude.
Trump officials have re-separated the families in violation of a landmark legal settlement that was meant to reunite immigrant children with their parents. Under Trump's second term, some of these parents have been detained in ICE jails and others wrongfully
psych. It's terrible. I shouldn't even make that joke. These poor people. He's such an asshole. God, Trump sucks. Yeah.
Reported and forced to leave their children in the U.S. Meanwhile, an estimated 500 babies and toddlers have been reportedly jailed by ICE since Trump's return to the White House.
Really?
On Capitol Hill, Leslie Groff, the former assistant to the late convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, testified before the House Oversight Committee behind closed doors Tuesday. Groff worked for Epstein for nearly 20 years. Her name appears more than 150,000
Give me a
times
Chiron title
in the Justice Department's Epstein files. Groff scheduled massages for Epstein from women, as well as meetings with influential people. Microsoft's co-founder Bill Gates is set to speak to the same House panel today. The Trump family's promoting.
Today is Wednesday, which follows CHEWSDAY, isn't it, mate? That's right.
Commemorative coins for an Ultimate Fighting Championship UFC fight scheduled for June 14th on the White House South Lawn. The event is set to take place on President Trump's 80th birthday, being framed, though, as part of the U.S.
I hope Trump gets super excited and doesn't fall asleep. Can you imagine on an 80th birthday watching the MMA fight, middle of the fucking best match, he's over there like this, just snoring away. I bet you it's gonna happen. And I can also guarantee something else. There's going to be a mega load of people pirating that show, too. Right?
His 250th anniversary celebration. The coins feature Trump's face and range from a silver version priced at nearly $250 to a gold medallion costing just under $12,000.
Bro, they got the 60-footer out there. That is about as high as you want to go on one of those fucking lifts. Trust me, I've been on them. I've been on a 60-footer. Oh! 60-footer off-road. Oh, on a hill. That was scary.
The White House is also
Talking about their long
restricting
reaches
press
here. These things have a bucket at the top, and they like take those up, and they're like assembling this in pieces, some of it, and adjusting things. But this one in the back, this orange one is like, I think it goes like 60 feet or 90 feet in the air. Which, once you're over 50 feet in the air and that thing's swinging around, there's no amusement park ride that'll prepare you for that.
Access to the event,
like,
handing the UFC control over which journalists receive credentials.
Yeah, see?
Most reporters
That's
will
what I'm talking about. So I think this is a 50-footer. But it's almost fully extended, it looks like. Maybe not. Maybe they can... Oh, they can go up a little further here. Okay, so they got 3 guys in it. I've also installed solar panels off this in my lifetime. You put a bunch of solar panels in here, and then you go install them on like a 30-foot.
Relegated to viewing screens at a nearby park or hotel and will be barred from their usual workspaces, including the briefing room.
They're just doing the lights.
And voters headed to the polls for primary elections in 4 states Tuesday: South Carolina, Maine, Nevada, and North Dakota. In Maine, 41-year-old Oysterman Marine veteran Graham Plattner won the state's Democratic primary for Senate. Despite a series of controversies, Plattner defeated the state's Governor Janet Mills by winning 72% of the vote. He will now face incumbent Senator Republican Susan Collins, who ran unopposed in the GOP primary. She's seeking a 6th term in the U.S. Senate.
Unopposed.
This is Graham Plattner speaking in Blue Hill, Maine, at his victory party Tuesday night.
Now, the truth is, Susan Collins doesn't serve us.
He's right.
She serves Donald Trump.
That's right.
She serves the Epstein class.
That's right.
She serves her corporate donors and the corrupt political system that has rigged the economy against us. She does not serve us, and so we will defeat Susan Collins.
Also did.
We will take back this Senate seat. We will take back our power.
Also did.
And when we do, I want you to imagine what it will feel like when we hold Trump and his criminal enterprise to account.
You can see our coverage of the Maine Senate race at democracynow.org. In South Carolina, Republican Congressmember Nancy Mace lost in the GOP primary for governor. She came in 5th place. Trump-backed Pamela Yvette, South Carolina's lieutenant governor, and Ellen Wilson, the state's attorney general, advanced to a runoff. It's the latest victory for President Trump after his ousting of Republican Congressmember Thomas Massie of Kentucky, who, along with Mace, was one of 4 House Republicans to join a vote compelling the Justice Department to release all of the
going
Epstein
back to
files.
the public sector.
And in California, Republican Steve Hilton, a former Fox News host, has advanced to the general election in the gubernatorial race. He will face off against Democrat Javier Becerra, the former Health and Human Services Secretary under President Biden. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Thanks for watching Democracy Now! On YouTube. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to make sure you never miss a This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org. I'm Amy Goodman.
Hilton.
Basketball fans will have their eyes on New York's Madison Square Garden tonight, where Game 4 of the NBA Finals between the New York Knicks and the San Antonio Spurs will take place. President Trump's presence at Game 3 on Monday night brought attention to the billionaire owner of Madison Square Garden and the New York Knicks, James Dolan, who invited President Trump to watch the game from his box. This was Trump speaking to reporters last week about the Knicks and Dolan.
Well, I've been a Knicks fan for a long time, and I'm also a Jim Dolan fan. He's a nice guy, okay? He's been a long time wanting to win, and he's a competitive guy, and he's got a team that's amazing. The answer is yes, he's invited me, I'm going.
Well, tonight the world's attention might be on Madison Square Garden, but owner James Dolan will also be likely paying attention to everyone who's coming to the stadium, specifically watching them. For years, the stadium's been notorious for using facial recognition technology to monitor everyone entering the venue. A few years ago, Dolan defended his use of facial recognition technology at Madison Square Garden, speaking to Fox 5 New York's Good Day, New York.
First off, it's funny what people think about facial recognition, right? When you get caught on a camera, which is basically anytime you go in the public, you're on camera, right? I mean, you walk down the street, believe me, you're on the camera like you're on 10 cameras. What facial recognition does is looks at your, recognizes your face and says, are you, right, someone who's on this list, right? So if you're a terrorist, right, it will say, that's a terrorist, right? And then, appropriate action can be taken. It's very, very useful for security. In fact, Madison Square Garden, I believe, is the most secure venue in the country.
Well, a detailed investigation by Wired magazine reveals just how extensive the surveillance machine that Dolan has set up at Madison Square Garden. It's called The Shocking Secrets of Madison Square Garden Surveillance Machine by Noah Shackman and Robert Silverman. Noah Shackman's latest piece is headlined, "A New York Cop Got Injured at a Boxing Match. Now Madison Square Garden is banning his lawyer." For more, we're joined by Wired's contributing editor, Noah Shackman. Thanks so much for being with us. So talk about this surveillance machine as James Dolan, the Trump ally who invited Trump to sit with him in his box for Game 3. Talk about him referring to tracking terrorists.
Yeah. So, look, every sports venue is going to have security measures, of course, and many of those may involve facial recognition. But no venue in the country deploys facial recognition so widely and so and weaponizes it in the way that James Dolan does. He uses facial recognition not just to keep suspected troublemakers out, but more importantly,
Dolan.
He has all sorts of enemies lists.
He's my favorite.
And those enemies include people that he might be in legal disputes with, people that might have tweeted mean stuff at him. And in our story for Wired, maybe the most shocking thing was there's a trans woman who, for the crime of being trans, was surveilled by James Dolan's spy machine, second by second, minute by minute, even when she went into the bathroom, when she came out, because James Dolan didn't want her close to the team.
How did he know about her?
This was a person, we're calling her for her own privacy, Nina Richards. And this is a person that was a familiar face at Madison Square Garden, that knew many of the staff, that knew many of the players, season ticket holder, and had been around the team.
Are you kidding me?
And we got a hold of a surveillance report from Pride Night a couple of years ago, where this woman wanted to enjoy the game and had pretty decent seats and, got a drink like everybody else and got some hot dogs like everybody else and even got escorted to an even better seat, which does happen from time to time if you hang around the Garden. And second by second, every single place she went, she was surveilled, and that was captured in a detailed report that we obtained.
Nice.
What did she do about this?
Well, that part we don't know entirely. We know there was some kind of legal dispute, and we know that she was eventually banned from the Garden. and is no longer allowed to be there. So it's one of many outcomes that happens with Dolan's spy machine. Some people
that is
are
actually
banned.
against the Constitution.
Some people are merely
I think.
Put on a watch list and surveilled. Some people are given warnings. But to me, the more shocking thing is not just what happens inside the garden, but that around the garden and even in the greater New York area, Madison Square Garden security forces have assigned themselves the task of policing these areas and acting as a kind of second ersatz police force in Midtown Manhattan. To me, most shockingly, is that when there are protests going through Midtown, for example, pro-Gaza
exactly
protests.
What he's talking about is the problem.
Madison Square Garden security staffers, according to a lawsuit that was recently filed, are basically told to surveil those protests and to embed, and one former security officer said he was ordered to embed inside those protests in order to do intelligence work.
Wait. Talk about Dole's head of security, John Eversole, who had his team cosplay as cops patrolling the neighborhood to spy on protesters?
Yeah. When I mean cosplay, I mean act as if they were cops, not actually put on cop uniforms. But yeah, they would go and they would bust, what they deemed to be bad merch sellers. They would bust what they thought were ticket scalpers.
The amount of power he has,
up the neighborhood.
Because so many people go there, and so many people are rich. This is the kind of thing. The kind of thing you can think about is you can imagine the amount of surveillance he has, say, on one particular individual that comes there that's super rich. That one particular individual decides that they don't like him anymore and they have a major fucking fuck up. He then uses some surveillance that he has of this person in the bathroom snorting coke, for example, at MSG against him as blackmail, for example. So, in my opinion, what's really dangerous about it, it's not just some random place that's being surveilled where you don't really expect to be private. It's not about that. It's more about the fact that he is, like this guy's saying, spreading out into the streets now. You know what I mean? This foretells a more shocking,
had to be hospitalized after his work for the garden. So no, it's incredibly serious and it's incredibly strange. They police the neighborhood without any coordination with the NYPD.
New York cop got injured at a boxing match. Now Madison Square Garden is banning his lawyer.
Yeah, that's right. So it's pretty common throughout the city here for cops to earn some extra money by working for private corporations.
No.
There's in fact an NYPD program where you can hire cops through the NYPD to do some extra work. There was the guy that unfortunately got killed, Officer Islam, who got killed at the NFL headquarters maybe a year ago on such work. Anyway, this guy was working a boxing match. The rapper Lil TJ and his crew were there, got involved in an altercation. This cop says he suffered spinal injuries and wanted some payback for his, hospital bills. His lawyer is a guy named John Scola, who's a famous lawyer in New York who covers a lot of cops when they're suing their bosses. Anyway, they filed a lawsuit, something that happens all the time, and MSG banned him for the crime of doing his job.
Now, the blacklist goes beyond MSG, right? The blacklist made by using the facial recognition extend to other MSG-operated entities like Radio City Music Hall.
Like Radio City Music Hall, like the Beacon Theater, and like the Sphere in Las Vegas, that incredibly popular high-tech venue. In fact, we got screenshots from the surveillance system that showed a little girl, I can't believe she would have been any more than 8 or 10 years old, that had been captured by the Sphere's surveillance machine and had been labeled a priority 8, the highest priority threat in the area. So this doesn't just capture enemies of Dolan, it captures everyone. And some people get labeled as threats even when they're clearly not. They're little girls.
Yeah, to be clear, the facial recognition they have isn't just like zooming in on your face. Like, it can do 50 of you guys at once. You know what I mean? 100, 200, anything in frame.
We're going to encourage people to read this as some watch the game. Who's watching you, especially those who can afford to go to MSG and watch the playoffs of the NBA? Noah Shackman is a contributing editor at Wired. Yeah. We'll link to your pieces.
It's a warning to the rich. Like, the rich think they're safe. Look at Epstein. Look at all the fucking blackmail that fucker had against all these people. And the reason shit's so fucking sideways right now is because of that fucker. It's the reason the whole idea of the Epstein class has stuck, because it just really explains everything. Probably not.
All right, y'all, welcome to the show. Hope everybody out there is having a great day. Prepare yourself, man. All I have to say is prepare yourself, because your president is now going on homoerotic rants in the middle of the day in front of massive crowds. That's what's happening. So Trump has completely and utterly lost his mind. He's gone from a low-filter guy to a no-filter guy because of his cognitive decline. And as a result of that, he can't help himself. And he starts doing homoerotic rants, lusting after men in the middle of the day. So I got amazing clips there. We'll talk about that. I also have Marco Rubio gets confronted directly to his face. He panics. He runs away as protesters call him out and say he's a war criminal, call him a cuck for Israel. So that's an amazing clip. Can't wait to show you that. We also have Erica Kirk as well gets called out to her face. Wait until you hear what the protester says, and wait until you see her reaction, because it's ugly. It is weird, and it is ugly in typical Erica Kirk fashion. And then also later on, the Atlantic Ocean current is currently in the midst of collapsing right in front of our eyes, and if indeed it does fully collapse, we're looking at a global catastrophic nightmare, the likes of which we've never seen. Totally reworking the way the world functions, and perhaps might be something that leads to the downfall of civilization as we know it. Mass starvation, horrible stuff. So you don't want to miss any of this. Really important stuff. You guys know the drill. Everybody subscribe to the channel and click that bell icon. You can also support the show on Patreon. Remember, y'all, I only say that because we are real independent media. I've never talked to an advertiser, never done an ad read, never will. You guys support the show from the ground up, and I'm deeply, deeply thankful for that. Thank you to everybody who also tips on YouTube as well. That means a lot as well. And, of course, you can sign up for Crystal Kyle and Friends on Substack. That link is below. And Corrin's World. Everybody go sub to Corrin's World as well. We hang out. Won $50 billion in contracts after giving to Trump's project Watchdog Group fines. President Donald Trump has repeatedly touted the gifts as a boon to taxpayers, but critics of the project say the administration's refusal to release a full list of donors creates the potential for corruption. All I have to say is the Washington Post is being way too careful here. This isn't the potential for corruption. This is the world's most obvious corruption that anybody has ever seen, ever, all time.
Where's Nick Shirley?
At first we were told, oh, this is going to be all privately funded, and then we're good ski, it's a wrap, we're done, right? Then it became,
where's Nick?
Okay,
where's old Nick Shirley?
Actually, we're going to go through Congress and try to get it from taxpayers. Now, this, of course, failed miserably, but they said, oh, no, did we say it was $200 million? We meant $400 million. And then they said, oh, did we say 400? We meant 600 million. And then they said, oh, did we say 600?
Look, Nick, just pick up the dictionary, learn 4 more words, and you're going to be better off. You're going to know 4 more than you already know. And then you can actually form a sentence. And maybe you'll find some real fraud, brother.
We meant 800 million. Then it became $1 billion, okay? Failed through Congress because, Nick, of course, there'd be fucking pitchforks in the street if they actually just, like, robbed taxpayers to fund this Epstein Memorial Ballroom. And then we came full circle to, no, the billionaires are actually going to fund this thing. But the obvious problem with that is it's a massive conflict of interest. It's a massive fucking pay-to-play scheme. And everybody knows it's a pay-to-play scheme. So now you have detailed reporting on exactly that. They're getting favors for donating to the ballroom. The whole thing is illegal. So any billionaire, any Epstein-class billionaire who gave money, look out. Because if there's actually a decent Democratic president, they should fucking investigate you and prosecute you over this obvious open corruption. So they're a little too comfortable right now for my liking. Kyle, the billionaires in the Epstein class need to fall the fuck.
Kyle, come on, bro. Nick Shirley's not on the case. We need Detective Nick Shirley. Hello, calling Nick Shirley.
In line and realize that we have rules and regulation in this country, or at least we're supposed to. I know right now we don't under this criminal president, but we will eventually. Okay, so add it to the list. You have the Epstein Memorial Ballroom and this giant con job. And you have that along with the millions of dollars of insider trading that Trump is doing. You have it with the suing the IRS scheme to rob taxpayers of $1.776 billion to pay off insurrectionists and terrorists and Trump's family members and his friends. You have the crypto scam shitcoin that Trump did, robbing his own supporters. You have the crypto scam shitcoin Melania did, robbing her supporters, right? Robbing MAGA in 2 ways within a 1-day period, okay? You have...
Yeah, but we're using it for, like, effect, right? You have to be outraged. Just like the right. Otherwise, you don't get attention. You know what I mean? There's plenty of academics that have been yapping for years about leftism, and no one listens because it's boring. I hear you, though. No, I understand.
World Liberty Financial, the crypto exchange. You have the pay-to-play pardon scheme, which everybody knows is going on, but nobody talks about it nearly as much as they should. You have the executive branch club, which literally the whole purpose of that is illegality, is corruption, is pay-to-play bribery.
That Wolf guy explains politics and Wolf Bites, it's called.
Then you have the hotel in Dubai, the golf course in Qatar, the $400 million Qatari plane. Do I even need to continue here? You got the resort in Vietnam. This is a family that has stolen from children's cancer charities. Did you know that? The Trump family cannot operate a charity in New York because they stole from a children's cancer charity. That's how loathsome they are. His university was a fraud. He stiffed his workers for his hotels and casinos.
No, it's not that.
He did tax fraud and insurance fraud and business fraud. He was found liable for exactly this stuff in civil court.
Economics.
Look at what's going on here, man. It's insane. Okay, but I'm just getting started because we learned this from the Washington Post. We also have this. ABC News says President Trump is floating the possibility of keeping the UFC arena on the White House South Lawn, built for a series of fights on his birthday and Flag Day, permanently. So he's saying, why not keep this up all the time? And the example he gives is, well, the Eiffel Tower was supposed to be temporary, and then they decided, let's leave it there permanently. Let's leave it there permanently. And now,
I think we all should have a Trump off. Me, Kyle, Hassan, anyone else that does a Trump voice.
The fucking disgusting trailer park trash garbage imagery coming from these pictures where you have the UFC fucking Thunderdome there, and next to it you have the East Wing totally destroyed and the ongoing illegal construction, okay? It looks like this man destroyed the White House in such a short time, right? It went from being like, something...
Okay, fine. I'll torture you then. Here you go.
Welcome, friends, to another Wolf Responds. This one I'm going to call China and the U.S. a delicate balance. What I mean by that phrase, a delicate balance, is that the two sides are on the one hand necessary for each other and antagonistic towards each other, attracted to one another and repelled, friends, competitors. It's a very delicate relationship.
Right.
And it explains much of what might otherwise be a mystery. Or even worse,
this is
be attributed to something other than what it is. What is it? The complicated reality that the United States needs China, even though it is hostile towards China. And China, as it becomes hostile toward the U.S., also needs the U.S. The Chinese, as best I can tell, understand what I just said. They know that that's the case. Americans, with some exceptions, don't. So I'm going to try to explain it to everyone here and now.
Maybe that's what I'm going
to begin with how China benefits from and needs the United States, with particular emphasis on economics. So here we go. Number one, China's spectacular economic growth over the last 35 years, outstripping every other country.
Except
taking
for this.
A population that was remarkably poor and bringing them into the
and we cannot compete with solar either or renewable energy,
modern age of standards of living.
But we are competitors.
High technology and all the rest. China's performance is outstanding, and it's changing the world. There's no taking that away from them unless you pretend, as unfortunately too many people do, that it didn't happen. But it did. and pretending is no way of coping.
Correct.
But here's one of the lessons the Chinese learned. The last 35 years were years of the dominance of what came to be called the American Empire. It was a global economic system that ran really smoothly because it was dominated in part by the United States.
Yeah.
We all have our currencies, but the U.S.
It ran smoothly until Clinton. Yeah, it did. And then when he signed the Dodd-Frank Act or got rid of it or whatever the fuck that was.
The dollar is number one. You can buy and sell virtually anything anywhere with dollars. There's a global system that keeps track of payments. The SWIFT system. That's an American operation. Carried out, or acted out, if you like, with dollars.
Yeah.
The United States Navy made sure shipping could go almost everywhere. Well, that's coming to an end now. That's part of what the war in Iran is about. But until recently, the United States kind of made sure you didn't have to have your own Navy to keep the oceans going as an alleyway for trade. The U.S. would do that.
Passive.
And the U.S. military kind of operated. It favored the U.S., no question. It helped the U.S. in ways it didn't help others. Wasn't fair, if that's what you're asking about. But it had lots of benefits for countries coming up.
Right.
And no country was coming up like China. China knows that it benefited from the domination of a world economy by the United States.
Right, because it sold us stuff.
At the same time, China understood that the United States was hostile, angry, bitter. The great question in the American media in 1949, when after a 4-year civil war and many more years of war with Japan in part of World War II, in 1949, the Communist Party of China won the Civil War and took over the government of China. The public relations in this country and all over the West was the headline, "Who lost China?"
Yep.
China didn't get lost. China was just where it was before, after. Nobody lost China, but that's all people in the West cared about. This terrible thing, the communists that took over China.
Well, they meant they lost it to neoliberal capitalism.
As if that were the interesting question.
What they meant.
And there were many candidates. The United States was hostile for the first 30 years of the existence of China. They didn't recognize, the United States didn't recognize China. They didn't exchange ambassadors. They didn't set up embassies.
Right.
There was no exchange at all. If Americans went to Asia, which many did, to look for business, to be tourists.
They didn't go to China.
They were tourists, but not in China. They didn't go to China. It wasn't considered safe.
Right.
Then President Nixon and his Secretary of State, Henry Kissinger, realized that the Chinese communists weren't going to go away. They had established a powerful government.
Yep.
They were not endangered by anyone. So they better make a deal with them. They noticed that the Japanese and the Europeans were doing it and making money. They didn't like being left out. So the Americans went in and we recognize China. Thanks a lot, said Mao Zedong and Zhou Enlai and their other leaders. And right about that time, they also, as part of it, opened up China, allowing American companies to come in and do what European and Japanese companies had already been doing.
Yep.
Making money off of a prosperously growing, if still poor, China. And China benefited from the flow of capital. American companies closing their businesses in the United States,
1980,
leaving the factories empty, the stores equipped not with American-made goods, but as you all know, when you visit Target or Walmart or any of the others, how many of those goods are not made in the United States anymore, and they haven't been. Many of them are made in China. Many more of them have parts of themselves made in China. China needed a market. It's one thing to produce goods and services, particularly goods that are cheaper than what you have to pay for in the West. But if you can also make the quality comparable, or maybe even better, well, then you win. If you can make the same thing as well or better and cheaper, you win the market. That's what competition is about.
Uh-huh.
China outcompeted the United States in one thing after another. But that didn't mean they could sell it. They had to have a distribution network. Well, up stepped the famous Walmart Corporation, the Walton family. They hooked into China early on, and they cut a deal with China. You produce it the best, cheapest stuff, We want to be the seller of it. We can get the American people who come to our stores for a bargain, and they will buy Chinese. You'll never be able to distribute. We have stores across the country, in every city, in every suburb, in every rural area where there's a market. We've plunked a Walmart. You all know that. Well, China needed a distribution agent. Would have taken them 30 years to set that up on their own. They're doing that now. But then they had to rely on the United States, which came forward and gave them Walmart. And then the other stores that had to follow suit. So China's industrialization, China's spectacular performance, owes more than a little to the United States. True. And they know that. Everything I've just said, I've discussed with my Chinese counterparts. They know. It's Americans who have trouble with this idea. They like the part about China benefiting from American corporations because it allows them to imagine, and they sure enjoy it, that China's spectacular growth, which they now kind of grudgingly admit, is after all due to us Americans. We were the distribution agent. We brought our factories over there to teach them how to do it. It's not very nice to see, but you understand the American boasting going on here. And by the way, there's a grain of truth to it. Nobody held a gun to the head of the executive in America who closes his factory in Syracuse or Wilmington or Detroit and moves to China. They didn't do that under pressure. They did that to make more money, which it achieved for them. And that was a profitable thing to do. China pays much lower wages.
And they also could pay us less, too. That's the problem.
So you get the work done for less, and China's an exploding market because all those people now have jobs. So China is the place where the wages are low and the market is growing. Every business school teaches the young people that go there, you want to make money, you want to be successful in business, you go where the wages are low and the market is growing. In the United States, we have business the opposite. 101. High wages, low growth. That's the reason. But China understands how it benefited. Now, let me turn it around quickly and show you how we, in America, benefited from China. And you'll see why it's important. First, over the last 40 to 50 years, especially since the 1970s, American working class people have not seen anything like the increase in wages that they saw from the end of the Depression, the late 1930s, early 40s.
And then he continues to say exactly what I meant. This allows them to stagnate wages and not raise them because, you see what I mean?
Right up until the 1970s. In that period, wages in America rose, and they rose a lot. I'm not talking just about the money. I'm talking about the relationship between the money you got in your paycheck and the prices you had to pay at the supermarket or the
actual
department
dollar
store.
amount, the whole
But after the 1970s, all of that stopped. Now, part of that was the jobs went overseas. And with them, the ability of workers to bargain for higher wages because they were losing their jobs. They were terrified about losing their job. They didn't push for higher wages. They stopped striking. They left unions. They had no weapons with which to fight.
It was very effective.
But there was also something else, and here comes China. American workers didn't rebel when their wages stopped rising. They could have. They didn't. And one of the reasons why, very crucial, was that basic costs, above all of clothing and appliances, right up to your car, basic items that people spent their wages on were coming down. So that there was less of a bite from your wages not going up
because you
had the pleasure of seeing prices come down. Americans learned that you didn't have to go to the conventional store. You could go to a Walmart and get it all cheaper. Why? Answer, China. That's why. China, in that way, gave the American capitalist class a tremendous gift. We'll help you stop paying higher wages to workers, which stopped after the 1970s. Flat lines out. Because the workers will still be able to go and buy more stuff at Walmart to stick in the garage where it dies and rusts slowly. Okay. That is how China helped America. Here's the second one.
Especially these days.
All those capitalists who moved their production to China were able to get away with much lower wages. When it first began in the 80s and 90s, the wages in China were 1/10 of what they are here.
1/10.
And China gave them tax breaks, and China built roads and railroads where they needed them. They got a fantastic deal. And then they could sell stuff to the rising market in China, which made them profitable there in that way too.
Long-term
Between
planning.
the low wages and the big market,
that's what happens.
American corporations made wild amounts of money. And who was that good for? All Americans who have stocks and bonds, because it was the companies making profits who then took those profits and distributed them as dividends.
Yeah, they're better
to
now.
their
People can afford cars.
And who are the shareholders?
Shit like
This little
that.
fact I like to remind you all. The richest 10% of Americans own approximately 87% of the stocks and mutual funds in Wall Street.
That's
so
crazy.
If there's going to be a killing made through China, it's going to show up as a roaring stock market, which the last 30 years have been. Punctuated by crashes,
Very smart.
but a big
this
boom
is
for
a
the
very
rich.
smart take.
So look, wow, China is the reason the rich people in this
That's why I
country
like this
are
guy.
as rich as they are. If you talk to Jeffrey Bezos or Elon Musk or Mr. Huang at NVIDIA, they'll tell you that. They know how much they've depended on China. But the American people aren't told. So the American people see a government constantly trying to...
Even the Apple CEO has said, we can't find engineers in America. We go to China.
hem China in to slow it down, to stop it, to exclude it. I'm going to close with an example of just how stupid this can make American policymakers. With great fanfare, the Pentagon, our military, has been keeping a list. It's now over 150 big Chinese corporations are being designated as unreliable. Why? It turns out they have contracts, these big companies, with their Chinese government. Yeah, maybe not the military in China, but indirectly they're working with the telephone company and high-tech company, and we shouldn't be working with their military. You got to be, I'm trying to be polite here, you got to be poorly educated to talk like that. And we have several pieces of legislation now before the Congress, both the House and the Senate, to try to make it even harder for Chinese companies. This is stupid. Let me explain why. It's the issue of the delicate dance.
He's right.
The Chinese haven't done it yet, but they're about to. They're going to copy the United States. They're going to point out something which the whole world already knows. Yes, Chinese companies have contracts with their government, lots of them. But here should be something not exactly a news flash for you. Most American large companies have contracts with the American government, too.
Yep.
And they have contracts with the American military, too. And what will happen to our companies and your job working for them if they can't sell abroad because other countries don't want to do what Americans are telling people not to do in regard to Chinese companies? Two can play that game. If one of them does, the other one will not be far behind. This is a losing proposition.
Yeah, it's like the Strait of
China
Hormuz.
is now a real competitor of the United States. And both the Chinese and we would be much better off sitting down and working out a live and let live sharing of the world economy.
Yeah.
Rather than a
shake it
tit-for-tat
off.
Hostile act.
We cannot
which only
separate ourselves from
boomerangs
China
back
at this point.
and hurts the country
There's no way.
that does it.
There's no reason
the Chinese
to, like
hesitate, don't do much of it. They're afraid of the American reaction. But here's the irony. The way the world economy is developing, it's only a matter of months or very few years before the shoe will be on the other foot. It will be we in America suffering because the Chinese, if we're not careful, will be telling all of their friends and allies not to go near American companies because they're in cahoots with their government or their military. If you understood the delicate dance,
that's fucking
you wouldn't be making one clumsy mistake after another. And in case you're wondering who this is addressed to, let me make it real clear. It's Secretary of War Hegseth who takes the lead in this, how shall I put it, mentally challenged approach to policy.
Idiotic.
If interventions like this make sense, please share them with your friends, your relatives, your co-workers.
Yeah, he's got 355,000 subscribers. Yeah, he just takes a couple drinks. He's good to go. Let's go, chat. It's too fucking hot in here, dude. My computer's cooking, actually. It's not good. It's running at the top of its thermals right now. Like 85. If I was to game, it would be humming at 100. Yeah, it's a AMD, so it can run hot, but still.
These are important issues for the future of our country.
In here right now.
Our jobs, our incomes, our standards of living. And of course, if you can help us cover the costs, that would be very much appreciated as well. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Richard D. Wolf in the house. That's right. All right, here we go. A little bit of regular news. Normal news.
Joining us to discuss more of this is MS Now Washington reporter and the Weekend co-host Jackie Alamany, former Bush and McCain advisor Mark McKinnon, and Danielle Moody, co-host of the Democracy-ish podcast. Jackie, we should note we expect to see the president at any moment for a bill signing, but what's the reaction to this Times reporting there so far?
Yeah, and I expect that the president is going to be asked about this report in real time by reporters who are let into the room for that bill signing. So far, aides and people around Donald Trump have remained pretty mum on the really blockbuster reporting done by Maggie Haberman and Jonathan Swan and released this morning. And we know that the president has lashed out at our fellow colleagues, Joe Scarborough, Mika Brzezinski, and the crew of Morning Joe after they rehashed some of the allegations and some of the reporting that were made on air. And the president then took to Truth Social to launch a series of complaints and criticisms against them. I think an acknowledgement of some of the reporting, as Joe said himself, essentially a potential confirmation of the reporting that the New York Times has released this morning. But there are a series of unflattering depictions and anecdotes in here that I think really illustrate just how much this issue has plagued this White House, really, since Trump took office, and the lengths that aides and people around him have gone to try to inoculate and protect the president from some of the more disturbing and problematic claims and pieces of information that were inevitably going to come out in some way if the Epstein files were released. That has sort of become essentially a self-fulfilling prophecy or a vicious cycle in some ways, in that this is the news cycle that has never ended for them because of the lack of transparency. I think it's also revealed some fractures within this White House, which is something that they have sort of publicly, outside of the war in Iran, done a good job of preventing from leaking out there. But another issue that J.D. Vance has differed from Donald Trump on.
Right. It's so fascinating to learn from this reporting what Vance's reaction to the Epstein files saga has been. Since dating back almost a year ago, they report the vice president appeared panicked. Of course, we know Vance has never been fully in step with the president on this, but how is this revelation, plus what we mentioned of him suggesting Tucker Carlson interview Ghislaine Maxwell, how is it different than what we already knew about where the president and the vice president don't see eye to eye?
Yeah, I'm not necessarily sure that it's different, but I do think it's illustrative and revelatory about some of the frustrations that we and myself have also been hearing from senior White House aides about the fact that J.D. Vance lives online, that he is someone who is too online, too wrapped up in the MAGA online ecosystem, and that he does sort of propagate and buy into some of these conspiracy theories that in the case of the Epstein files has come back and created sort of a monster of its own to bite this administration.
I mean, I'm too online. I understand and know about these things, but I choose not to believe them because they're fucked up. What? Just because you're constantly online doesn't mean you're gonna believe this shit. I don't like that. Even though I hate him, I'm just saying, like, what kind of argument is that?
Not just politically, but also just sort of.
You're taking away how evil he really is. I'm sorry. He's not dumb.
Morally, if we are taking a step back and looking at this in an apolitical way. this is something that initially, this was a conversation that also cropped up again during some of the
just call him
fractures
what he is.
that started
Don't
to emerge
afraid.
during the Iran war. I was told by some senior aides that they felt like they were brushing off the criticisms from Tucker Carlson, Marjorie Taylor Greene, some of the MAGA online influencers, while J.D. Vance was sort of online reading them, and it was essentially fueling some of his private consternation about the war. So it's now, I think, certainly, again, illustrative to see yet another example of J.D. Vance's dive into the MAGA media ecosystem online and the way that sort of impacts his everyday job as President Trump's vice president.
Danielle, I could understand the strategy of trying to utilize MAGA media, but suggesting Tucker Carlson interview Maxwell, what's your reaction to that?
I mean, I think that it's incredibly shocking, but for me, what is most disturbing are the people that were in the Situation Room. Well. And the way that Haberman and Swan started off their piece was stating what the Situation Room is actually used for, right? Like war and discussions of strategy around our foreign relations and domestic issues, et cetera. And the fact that so many of Donald Trump's top staff, cabinet members were in that Situation Room without him to discuss how to cater, right, how to create a PR package for the Epstein files is incredibly shocking. But the idea that you would get Tucker Carlson to sit down with Ghislaine Maxwell, and Tucker Carlson, who has been at odds with this White House on a number of issues, is really just, it's extraordinary. But to me, the most extraordinary part is how many people were involved in the spin, in the cover-up, and in the lie that this White House said that Donald Trump had nothing to do with the Epstein files. And yet, these are not the actions that are taken by innocent people.
Right.
There's been just a drip of the Epstein files since the start of this administration. Mark, what's your big takeaway from what this says about the administration's apparent dysfunction and inability to handle a crisis?
Well, you drip right into my metaphor that I was going to use.
Mind meld.
Because, I did comms for presidents and candidates most of my adult life. And, the maxim was always, when you have bad news, the best way to deal with it is to get it all out as quickly as possible and being transparent. And this is just the worst case possible. This is like they had a dam or a reservoir full of bad news. And rather than just break the dam and let it blow, they have, as you said, let it drip. So we've gotten news almost every day since the beginning that's bad news. And the cumulative effect is way worse than I project, suggest, than would have happened had they just let it all out at the beginning. But they're paying the consequences for it. And again, where will this story even end at this point?
Among the people inside the Situation Room was Todd Blanche, then Deputy Attorney General. And I want to read a portion about his role in these White House discussions. Quote, as the president's former defense attorney, Blanche had a unique vantage point in the discussion. He was better equipped than anyone else in that room to weigh the ideas being discussed against Trump's personal and political interests. Blanche laid out what he saw as their best options. Wow. One option he mentioned was to petition the courts to release grand jury transcripts. Another was to have DOJ lawyers interview Maxwell, which, of course, we then saw Blanche do. What ended up happening, obviously, has come from that. How did it all work out for them, Danielle?
I mean, I don't think that it worked out well. And here's something that I find really interesting. So in the article, they're discussing the fact that Todd Blanche, was offering up all of these options. And in them, pardoning her was on the table, right? Everyone pushed back, apparently. Well, some people in that room pushed back on a possible pardon because of what would happen if, in fact, she was pardoned, what would happen with their base. And they said that there should be no special treatment that is given to Ghislaine Maxwell because apparently they thought that she didn't really have any damning information on Donald Trump. But then Todd Blanche goes and sits down with her, moves her from a maximum security prison into a lesser secure, a less security prison, right? Where she now has more access to activities, to animals, to all of these different things. And so on one hand, they said, let's not pardon her because of how that will look. But then he turned around after that interview that he did with her and then decides to move her to a minimum security prison. This is a woman that was involved in trafficking children, right? And so, again, I think that what came out of this article are all of the ways, all of the options, all of the things that were being thrown at the table, but being thrown at the wall, but that were being led by folks inside of the Justice Department, namely the deputy and the Attorney General of the United States. And that in and of itself is incredible.
It does sound, according to this reporting, it sounds like Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche was given a huge role in deciding what to do about the Epstein issue. And now the president has nominated him to be the Attorney General. Mark, what does it say about the power he wields inside this administration?
Well, one of the things we know about Donald Trump is that he was very unhappy with his Attorney General from the first term, and that was something that he was going to change dramatically, so that he literally, and now he literally has his own personal attorney as the Attorney General, which is what he's always wanted. So, and I think the whole, and it's so problematic to have that person at the center of so much of what's going on with the Epsteins. I mean, the whole issue of his interview with Ghislaine Maxwell and then the transfer to a minimum security prison. I mean, that just, you talk about quacking like a duck, that quacks like a duck. I mean, it's a duck, folks. How could it not be more obvious what's going on there? So that just makes it more problematic for his confirmation.
Right.
But at the end of the day, I don't think Trump cares, because what he wants is the guy who's going to stand by him and protect him through anything.
Right. Loyalty. Gotta have the loyalty. That's right. Oops. Gotta check on them with the girls. Gotta check.
I remember the time that Trump was in Butler, Pennsylvania, and there was a sniper on the roof, and everybody in the audience saw the sniper, but apparently Secret Service or local police didn't, which is weird.
Right.
And then one of Trump's supporters gets shot and killed, and Trump's ear gets grazed, and then everybody goes to the Republican National Convention wearing maxi pads on their ears. Well, this is a really interesting development in this whole case, because I don't know about you guys. I'm not a huge conspiracy theorist, but the whole thing was always fishy AF. Pop this up. The Midas Touch is summarizing here a tweet from the Judicial Watch. The Judicial Watch, interest of full disclosure here, has deleted the tweet, and we'll get into why we think they deleted it in a moment. But let me read this to you. FBI records obtained through a Judicial Watch lawsuit reveal that a Butler County Sheriff's deputy exchanged 2 emails with Trump shooter Thomas Crooks before the July 13, 2024 assassination attempt. The records remained heavily redacted, concealing the nature of the communications. The documents also reveal a SWAT officer recovered a cell phone and a remote device with an antenna from Crooks after he was killed. And then bizarrely, the FBI Rapid Response Center, aka Kash Patel, puts out a denial. Pop this up. And this says, this is a clickbait lie by @Judicial Watch, which is now nothing more than a fake news media, blah, blah, blah. This FBI rapid response tweet gets community noted, and it says the released FBI records obtained by Judicial Watch via the Freedom of Information Act are summaries of interviews with Butler County Sheriff's deputies, not college instructors, one of whom confirmed exchanging 2 emails with Crooks prior to the shooting. So, in my opinion, this brings out a really interesting development here, that why the most petty, grudge-holding man on the planet, Donald Trump, never brings this up. ever. He never brings up Thomas Crooks. He never talks about anything regarding this. And this is a pretty big bombshell that the shooter was communicating with the sheriff's office. Bizarre stuff.
I look at this, and in my mind, when this happened, it all seemed to me to be odd. There was something odd about it from jump. Like you said, everybody saw the sniper, but not the Secret Service. And then you get more into it. No details were released about the alleged assassin. There were no records made public, despite different agencies and lawsuits trying to get this information. That smells super fishy. And then on top of all that, you have Donald Trump that within moments of this alleged assassination attempt, his fight, he had a message for it. He was on message immediately. And if my memory serves, at the time, he was lagging in the polls with Kamala Harris at that time. And this catapulted him because he could say, they attempted to take my life because I'm a hero. So there are so many things that don't add up here in my mind.
He was lagging in the polls, but Joe Biden was still his opponent at the time. Joe Biden had not dropped out of the race yet, and he was really lagging. And it's important to point out that had Joe Biden and or Kamala Harris won, Donald Trump more than likely would have been convicted and gone to prison because Jack Smith had him dead to rights. The whole thing was just pretty much as rock solid of a case as you can get. And so I think that this thing stinks to high heaven. I was in Italy when this happened. And of course, with the time exchange, I wake up and it's like, oh my God, this happened. Then I'm out and about. Everybody in Europe thought it was staged. Like, oh, the Americans with this Hollywood, that looks so fake, how he popped up and just how staged it was in nature. But anyway, this is not normal. And Trump has normalized this lack of transparency about facts regarding this. Now, he's very transparent about all the crimes and all of the basic financial pay-to-play shit that he has doing. He's very financial about, he's very transparent about that. He wants to rub that in everybody's face. But all of this, the dismantling of the FBI, dismantling of law enforcement, it was all a lie. Oh my gosh, the deep state is in all of these places. They don't like everyday Americans that are unbiased that work in these companies because facts tend to go against fascists. And so,
dude, it sucks, but I got to turn my PC off. I'm afraid it's going to burn up. I got to go, guys.